People who grew up poor, what did you used to think was normal? For my school's Spirit Week, they had a thrift shop day, where most everyone dressed in old ratty clothes, or the weirdest stuff they could find in a thrift shop. Needless to say, as someone whose clothes were 80% second-hand, it was an eye-opener. A bit shitty of the school to have a day like that. I swear schools really don't think about poor kids. I went to Catholic school, so we wore uniforms. We used to have dress down days, where you could wear whatever you want, and you'd have to pay $2. The money collected would go to charity. I remember some kids would forget the $2 or just show up in uniform and say they forgot it was dress down day. The kids who didn't bring the $2 would get in trouble, and obviously as kids all we think is wow, this kid couldn't even bring in $2, or wow, this kid is in uniform, while everyone else is in regular clothes. As I got older I realized a lot of these kids were probably not well off financially, and here was the school punishing them for not bringing in money. In Canada, Ontario, Catholic schools aren't private. They are part of a different school board than public schools, but they are still free to attend. My elementary school was in a middle class area. Just to clarify, because it definitely wasn't a super rich kid school. Private schools especially don't care, religious or otherwise. I grew up solidly middle class, but the private middle school I went to, on heavy academic scholarship, was populated by primarily wealthy students. Every year, spring break was a class trip somewhere, Nick, DC, etc. One year we couldn't afford for me to go. I learned much later how hard my parents fought the school on that. Even though it was optional, it was just expected everyone would go. Because why wouldn't you? My school was a private school which pretended to be all Kumbaya, and we live the world let's help each other out, and had a very large scholarship program for students in high school. In middle school, we had a bunch of school trips which were really expensive, and when a classmate couldn't afford to go, the department organizing the trip called her in and said you will go and that's final. The school will lend your parents the money and they will pay it back. She was 13. She didn't end up going. And even though they tried to intimidate her, thankfully there were no other consequences from the school. Still a shitty situation though. I was totally shocked when I learned that some people go out to eat more than once a year. Also when I learned there are people who don't skip meals. I was shocked to find out people eat out on a regular day, like not anyone's birthday or any other celebration. I remember being so happy when my mom rewarded me with fast food fried chicken meal for school achievements in elementary school. When I was in undergraduate, my sister told me my mom would skimp on their meals just to buy me those. Yeah, we went to those fancy western fast food places. They were still good in my country back in the 1980s, and I always wondered what the other families there were celebrating. Not completely innocent. Kid me did figure out maybe they went a teensy bit more often than we did, but I still thought they were at least there for some occasion. Birthday. Dad got a raise. Sports team won. Whatever. Didn't cross my mind at all that people would go there for no reason other than they just felt like it. Years later I got my first paycheck and went fuck yeah and bought an entire cake. Turns out it's not actually possible to eat a whole cake by yourself in one sitting. Like, goddamn, there's so much freaking cake. Turns out it's not actually possible to eat a whole cake by yourself in one sitting. In a situation like this, it's not the destination that you should enjoy, but the journey. Life before death. I never saw my parents because they worked so much. When I was in elementary school, we lived in an apartment above the bar they owned. My time with them was spent working in the kitchen, doing homework at the bar, and then walking upstairs to put myself to bed. We eventually moved, and I was always alone. From Wednesday morning through Saturday, I would wake and walk to school, come home, make dinner, do homework, and go to bed with no contact from an adult. This continued throughout secondary school. From 6th through 12th grade, I was so incredibly lonely, but it was normal for me. I can't imagine how my world would have been different if they didn't need to work so much to scrape by. How do you think this impacted you? Now that you're grown up, are you close with your parents now? I think this has impacted me quite a bit as an adult. I feel rather invisible as a person, with the exception of my children. I can confidently say that if I disappeared, it would impact no one. I also overcompensate with my kids, spending a ton of time with them and getting extremely nervous when I can't be there for them. Holidays are odd, as I have few traditions. My parents are divorced now, my mom remarried a wealthy man, and my elderly father works at a fast food restaurant. Even though he's past traditional retirement age, we live in different parts of the country, and I talk to my mom once a week and my dad twice a week. So, not close, but not distant. Although they were not the best parents, they are good people, and I know they tried their best. I think you're doing pretty well to try to give your children what you didn't have. A lot of people won't know how to do it and continue that cycle. You can make your own traditions and your children and children's children will know that feeling BC of you. I like how you don't blame your parents either. It's so easy to get wrapped up in resentment. Everyone in the house going into the kitchen to see what groceries were brought home and being so excited as if it was Christmas. Also, now that my family is doing a lot better than when I was growing up, we find ourselves hoarding food, stocking up on canned goods, buying things in bulk on sale, as if we are waiting for those rainy days to hit again. Does anyone else experience this? Oh my god, yes. Getting groceries was the highlight of my month. The warmth and safety I would feel seeing the bags under the kitchen light in the evening. I doubt I'll ever forget. And yeah, now that I'm living with my fiancé, we have to keep food stocked up, or I feel like we'll never have enough to maintain our health ever again. I get truly paranoid. I bet that came in handy over the last week or so. No kidding. I live alone, have a comfortable salary, and grew up in a home that always had large stocks of food. My grandparents spent their childhood as POWs in Russian work camps in WW2. They always insisted on large pantries. My mother never throws out any food, always finds ways to reuse leftovers. Now I'm here, 2 generations later, not understanding why you would ever buy more than 1 week's worth of fresh groceries. Canned food, yuck, gotta get them veggies and never frozen meat. Now restaurants are closed, and there's no food in the shops. Oops. As a kid, I didn't know there were multiple settings on a water heater. I assumed everybody had to wait an hour or so after somebody uses the shower to get some hot water going. I'm embarrassed to admit that I recently found out about continuous flow of hot water 5 years ago. I was 25. I spent the weekend at my then future in-laws house. The conversation went something like this. Fiancé, I'm going to shower before dinner. Me, but your brother just got out 5 minutes ago. Fiancé explains how they never run out of hot water. My mind was blown. In my house, showering was a well-planned event for exactly this reason. Here it's a fucking free-for-all. You're either the first person in being yelled at because you've had just enough time to wet your balls, or you're the last person in taking a 15-second super scrub in ice water. Choose your poison. Going on vacation to the local hotel in our hometown. We got to play in the pool and order delivery pizza, a rare treat, and we always had a blast. I loved these vacations. They were the highlight of my childhood in many ways. Pepperoni pizza and bottled Coke never tasted so good as when you had been swimming for 4 hours straight. The combo of pizza plus hotel plus pool chlorine smell brings me back. I didn't have a rough childhood by any means, but what you describe is so familiar. I used to live in a hotel for 2 months after a house fire, mostly smoke damage, and we always made the best of our pool days. And the free breakfast, of course. The things I would do for a fresh Belgian waffle every morning. Never traveling out of the country or state. Kids always talked about where they traveled, like during breaks, summer vacation for example. I think it was a grade 6 project in September, and we had to draw maps to geographic locations where we went that summer. My map was just of the town, and going to the grocery store and church and stuff. Hopefully it made my teacher rethink that project for the future. I know how that goes. Definitely feels shitty. For us, it was an essay about where we went over the summer and they were posted on a board in the hall. I just never turned one in. I never considered talking to the teacher and just kept making excuses why I never turned one in. That is a bullshit assignment. Feels Bedman. Only having lunch at school, like that being the only meal of the day, I learned when I was like 10. Then I started saving my food and bringing it home so my brother and sister could eat. Oh man, this just hurt my heart. You are such a good sibling. Hope you and your family are in a better place now. Thanks, mate. Yes, much better and far less food insecure. Was hard as a kid, but made me a better person now. Skipping lunch/dinner periodically so one of us could have all 3 meals. Like Tuesdays plus Thursday plus Sunday I didn't eat dinner, but my mom plus little brother did, and every other day my mom didn't eat lunch or dinner so me and my brother could. I only started skipping meals for my mom because she was getting physically sick from not eating. My mom having to buy a new 3000 car every couple of years because our previous one broke down and we don't have enough to repair it, coming home to see the water/electricity were off. Having to buy jugs of water at the dollar store so we could flush the toilet, leaving a giant hole in the entryway where water had leaked through because we just couldn't afford to repair it. Not having eat/having to bath with water from jugs, plus waking up and realizing our washing machine had broken down again. So it rubbed my dirty clothes with washing detergent to try and mask the stale scent clothing gets when it hasn't been washed to this day. People making comments about something smelling weird, even if not directed at me, makes me have major anxiety attacks. Only having one pair of super cheap shoes that we'd have to wear until they fell apart. The amount of times I tripped over the soles of my own shoes in my HS hallways was ridiculous. I thought I grew up poor until I read this. Holy fucking shit. The worst part is that we wouldn't have been that poor if the insurance my mom's job provided didn't take $300 plus out of her paycheck each week. Stuff like that is why we didn't qualify for government benefits and stuff. / because on paper, we were well off enough to not need them. $300 plus out of each paycheck. WTF, that's a lot. And what did that have to do with your government benefits? On paper it showed that my mom made X amount of money just over the line to qualify for stuff like free lunch, for example, but because insurance takes out $300 for insurance sometimes, especially around holidays, they'd even take our insurance for 2 weeks instead of 1, we weren't actually seeing that much money. Basically it was a whole mess. When I was about 15, my family went from being dirt poor to closer to stable, but still under the poverty line. But from 4 to 15, these were things my family did that I didn't realize were abnormal. Not seeing my parents for 10 to 14 hours out of my day because they were working as hard as they could manage. Starting work at the age of 10 because my parents owned a business and couldn't afford employees. Saving every last scrap of leftover food and using it to make something else. Finding my friends' lives of cool toys and yearly vacations to be luxurious and fairy tale-esque. Now I'm living relatively comfortably, but man, if these aren't still something I think about. I grew up thinking food was a scarcity. Whenever we went anywhere my mom would tell me and my sisters to not accept food from people. She didn't want our hunger to be someone else's burden. Now that I'm in college and go places like my boyfriend's family's house, it's seen as rude to refuse food. My automatic response is to politely refuse, even if I hadn't eaten all day. Even after years, and now being able to mostly get by myself, it still sometimes feels like being hungry is a normal state. I sometimes still forget to eat. My stomach will tell me I'm hungry, but because it was so ingrained in me that hunger is normal, I typically won't realize I'm hungry until I get a headache. This completely. I still forget to eat, and my fridge and freezer have so much food. I'm just not used to having money, let alone the luxury to take care of myself. Exactly. Having sleep for dinner. Oh hetero man. That takes me back. Growing up, whenever winter came we used to pull all of the blankets out of the closet and bundle up at night. We didn't have working heat and most nights it would go way below freezing. I always looked forward to it though, and would love getting gathered up in a million blankets and sit next to the space heater. I also shared a small room with both my sisters, and slept on one twin bed with them. My brothers did the same in the room across from us. Same. We had our own rooms, but we didn't have heating, and my house's insulation was like really spotty for some reason. Even now though, I like to let my room get as cold as possible, so I can bundle up. The house I live in now is not the trap house that my childhood home was, so I don't need to wear full clothing and 4 blankets, but still, it's nostalgic. Cleaning your plate. I honestly still do. If I pay for food I'm gonna eat it all, and if not, I will save it. So many people I've eaten with will leave food and it's just disposed of. Hell, my stepdad didn't realize that for 14 years. Leftovers, trash my mother single-handedly raised 2 boys. We don't waste shit. Edit, man. This got a lot of attention. I got a slice of pie award. Whatever that is. I get made fun of my in-laws for always finishing my plate of food. No matter what. They say things like you'd eat shit on toast if it was served up to you. No sir. I just eat what I'm served and don't complain. The first time I ate with my in-laws, an uncle of my husband told me I didn't have to eat the crust on my pizza if I didn't want to. I never dreamed that you weren't supposed to eat the crust. I like the crust. I find people who don't eat the crust a little suspect. Crust is amazing. Who the hell doesn't like bread? I thought one pair of shoes was normal till the 10th grade. My spouse grew up poor and this was an issue for him. One pair of shoes and they were cheap Payless or knockoffs. They didn't last and that was too bad. No other shoes to wear. He is big on his kids having name brand shoes and more than one pair. We don't go wild and spend exorbitant amounts on shoes. But it's something that my spouse insists on spending some money on. It's just something he has bad memories about. Parents were able to afford me Nikes once. Fucking things fell apart so fast. I was so mad cause they spent so much on them, so I could have them. Went back to Walmart or Mart shoes. Missed Mart. They had some wicked good shoes. I loved the Mart shoes, but my shoes every year were torn to shreds. My Nikes got the worst. The soles almost came out entirely by the time I got my new shoes for the new school year. 7 to 14 years old, going to school then going to work. After school delivering newspapers and also collecting their payments. Never a day off. One time we had so much snow that the post office closed, yet my little ass had to deliver. Latchkey kid at 10 years old because parents worked. Being a girl, I was also responsible for cooking dinner for my father and older brothers and other household chores. I was also expected to excel at school. I did. My schedule was so strict. One thing I hated the most were science fairs. All the rich kids had so much help and confidence. Then there was me with a piece of cardboard. Loads of stress and anxiety. The science fair thing, holy shit. I hated that. That one ate ass. One that's on the same level as that for me was when we were told to just type the project/essay out. I could never bring myself to say that no one owned a computer or even a printer in my family. No one owned a computer or even a printer in my family. I got through my first couple years of college with an electric typewriter. I doubt any of my professors even knew. And that was in 1996 to 98 or so. Shopping at thrift shops. It wasn't until I got to high school that no one else shopped there, or the fact that a lot of our stuff came second-hand markets and things like that. It was like this for a long time. Only poor people shopped at thrift stores. Now it's in fashion. So tons of wealthy people go there looking to score on something neat. Yeah, it used to make me angry when I was bullied for having hand-me-down stuff and thrift stuff. I still shop at thrift stores because sometimes you find good stuff and it's a habit now. I donate all my old clothes too, so it goes into the system and helps people. I still shop at them to cause screw paying full price. It's great having clothes that no one else has. I've found things with tags still on and even some designer stuff that was hardly worn. I've always loved going thrift shopping, but there's still people who view it as disgusting, and that, to me, is stupid. You wash the clothes, you don't just throw it on. There's even thrift stores that wash the clothes in antibacterial soaps. using Rego bread instead of hot dog and hamburger buns. Struggle dogs and struggle burgers. I don't know why they call it hamburger helper. It does just fine by itself. Remember reading the instructions on a box of Easy Mac where it says add milk, and you're like, hey, I wish. Apostrophe. I knew it wasn't normal, but we didn't have heat or air conditioning in my house. We used a wood stove in the oven to heat the first floor, and the second floor was usually freezing. When the weather turned hot, we were just hot. In female, if it matters, my family's budget fluctuated a lot. In our poorer years, I thought it was normal to wear my brother's hand-me-downs and make them last as long as possible, like. Until my pants were so short that 3 or so inches of my ankles were showing. Gotta make those clothes last 10 years at least. Also, when my dad started making enough money that he could splurge and buy steak, I thought steak was nasty. Turns out, my dad could only afford the cheapest, gnarliest cut of steak possible. Basically, I would chew and chew only to have it turn to meat gum in my mouth. It was totally inedible. So I wondered why all the wealthier families liked steak so much. Lol. I, also a girl, didn't think it was weird that I had to wear my brother's hand-me-down underwear. Getting gifts from the Salvation Army, layaway for school clothes, fares for free school supplies, mom and dad working 2 jobs, sharing everything. Hey, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.